My name is Stephanie Wilson. I'm 31 years old. And the day I wore a wedding dress is the same day I learned exactly what kind of man I was about to marry. It didn't happen at the altar. It didn't happen during the vows. It happened in a hallway about 45 minutes before I was supposed to sit down to the biggest dinner of my life. I was walking through the back of the venue when I spotted my dad, Earl Wilson, the man who drove freight trucks for 30 years so I could have everything I needed, standing alone in a corridor with nowhere to go. No seat. No table. No place in the room his daughter was about to get married in. And while my dad stood there in the one good suit he owns, the suit he'd saved up months to buy, 8 people from my husband's family were sitting at the head table. Table 1. Right up front. In the spot that was supposed to have my parents' names on the place cards. Instead, my mom and dad had been moved to table 16. All the way in the back, jammed into a corner next to a swinging service door with a utility cart parked 2 feet from my mother's chair. The light above that table wasn't even a real chandelier. It was a humming fluorescent tube, the kind you see in a storage closet. When I went to ask my husband why his mother had moved my parents, what he said back to me broke something open that I could not close again. I was standing there in my wedding dress, 180 guests waiting just beyond that wall, and I made a decision I cannot take back. And I would not take it back for anything in this world. What I did, what he said, and what came crashing down on his family after that is the story I'm about to tell you. But before I go any further, if you have ever had someone look at your family like they weren't good enough, this one's for you. Hit that like button right now so more people find this story. And if you're new here, subscribe. I share real stories every single week and I don't sugarcoat a thing. Now drop your city and local time in the comments. I genuinely love knowing who's out there with me tonight. Okay, let me take you all the way back. Back to the morning of September 7th. The last morning I ever woke up thinking I was about to start a real marriage. Pinewood Falls, Florida. Population just under 7,000. Kind of small town where the cashier at the grocery store knows your whole family by name, and the mechanic down on Route 4 still calls you Little Steph, even though you're a grown woman with a mortgage and a stethoscope. I grew up on Magnolia Creek Road in a 3-bedroom house my dad bought when I was 2 years old. He paid it off in 23 years. When he made that last payment, he didn't throw a party or pop champagne or anything like that. He just came home, sat the paperwork on the kitchen table, looked at us and said, "We own this place now. Nobody can take it." My dad, Earl Wilson, drove 18-wheelers for a regional shipping company for 30 years. Long hauls down the coast, overnight routes through the middle of nowhere, sometimes gone for a whole week at a stretch. His hands were rough and always carried a faint smell of diesel no matter how long he scrubbed at the sink. His back went bad around year 20. His right shoulder got busted up in a dock accident in 2010 and was held together with surgical pins after that. But I cannot remember a single school play, a single graduation, a single moment that actually mattered where Earl Wilson was not standing somewhere in that room. He rerouted his schedule. He drove through the night. He made it happen. My mom, Beverly Wilson, worked as a teacher's aide at Pinewood Falls Elementary for 24 years. She was in the classroom every morning helping kids who struggled with reading, math, kids with learning differences, kids who got frustrated and shut down. She stayed late. She bought school supplies out of her own wallet when the classroom ran out. She knew every single child in that building by name, and she knew which ones were going through something hard at home. Those kids got extra patience. Every time. We weren't rich. Not even close. Vacations meant camping at state parks or driving to my aunt's house a few hours away. I wore my cousin's old soccer cleats for 2 seasons because new ones weren't in the budget. One Christmas, the big gift under the tree for me was a used laptop my dad had fixed up himself after watching repair videos online for 3 weekends straight. But our front door was always open. Dinner was always hot. I never once went to bed wondering if I was loved. Not one single night. I got through college on scholarships and student loans. Came a physician assistant at the urgent care clinic on Route 6. Paid off every cent of my debt by 29. I built that life with my own hands. But the foundation under all of it? That was Earl and Beverly Wilson. And I was about to find out that the man I planned to marry saw them as something to be embarrassed by. I met Cole Merritt on a Thursday afternoon in February, 2.5 years before the wedding. His uncle, Ray, came into the clinic for some blood work follow-up. Cole had driven him because Ray had just had a minor procedure and wasn't supposed to be behind the wheel yet. Cole was sitting in the waiting room scrolling his phone when I walked past with a chart in my hand. He looked up, smiled. The kind of easy smile that didn't seem like it was trying too hard. He asked if he could take me to dinner before I even made it back to the hallway. We went out that Friday. Then the next Friday. Then it stopped being just Fridays and turned into every day we could manage. He was the kind of person who remembered small things, a book I mentioned once, a restaurant I said I'd always wanted to try, my mom's birthday. He took me to a rooftop place in Orlando where the menu didn't have prices on my side. He said, "Get whatever you want." And he meant it. The Merritt family was a completely different world from anything I'd grown up around. Cole's father, Douglas, ran a commercial real estate development firm that had been in the family for 2 generations. Their name was on the side of a mixed-use plaza downtown and on a bronze plaque at the country club where they'd been members for 20 years. His mother, Victoria, chaired the Gulf Coast Charity Arts Gala every year and sat on the board of 2 nonprofits. Cole's uncle Gerald and his wife Patricia were fixtures at every Merritt family event, quiet, polished, the kind of people who said little and observed everything. Big house on a gated street. A beach property an hour south. A boat with a name painted on the back. The first time I met Victoria Merritt, she was in cream linen and pearl earrings. She shook my hand, looked me over real slow and said, "An urgent care clinic? How practical of you." Then she smiled and added, "Cole used to date the Pemberton girl, Judge Pemberton's daughter, over at the county courthouse. Very accomplished family." She kept that smile going while she said it. I told myself that was just how some people talked. Formal. Cold. Didn't mean anything deep. Cole squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "Give her time. She'll come around." She never did. But by then I was already all in, and when you're all in, you tend to explain away the things you really should be paying attention to. Cole proposed 17 months later in a private dining room at a place his family had an ownership stake in. Candles everywhere. A small string group in the corner. A ring that caught the light like something from a dream. I said yes. I meant every word of it. And then the wedding planning started. And the Cole I thought I knew started to look a little different the more I looked closely. Victoria picked the venue. Not the little white church off Palmetto Avenue where my parents had gotten married 29 years earlier. No, she picked the Bayside Grand Event Hall, a waterfront venue with marble floors and valet parking and a price tag that made my eyes water. Victoria picked the event planner. Her friend Lori. Victoria picked the catering company. Victoria picked the florist. When my mom sweetly suggested adding her black-eyed peas and corn casserole to the appetizer table, and y'all, my mom's corn casserole is the kind of thing people request at every family gathering without fail, Victoria tilted her head and said, "Oh, Beverly, that's so thoughtful. But we're doing a formal seated dinner. We don't want it to feel like a backyard cookout." She said it with a smile and a warm voice. That's what made it cut so deep. My mom laughed it off. I watched her hands go still in her lap underneath the table. Every time I tried to push back on something, Cole had the exact same answer. "Just let Mom have this one, babe. Once the wedding's done, it's just us. Our house, our way. I want to be straight with you, I am not a pushover. I chose to let some things go. I figured you pick your battles. Let the venue go. Let the menu go. Hold on to the marriage, the 30 or 40 years that come after the party." That was my thinking. What I didn't see was that Victoria wasn't fighting battles with me. She was running practice rounds. Every time I stepped back without saying anything, she took note. She was figuring out just how far she could push before I finally pushed back. I learned that lesson too late. September 7th, 6 in the morning. I woke up in my old bedroom at my parents' place. The same yellow curtains my mom had sewn from fabric she found on clearance when I was 9 years old. My dress was hanging on the closet door, ivory crepe simple tea-length bought with my own money. Victoria had emailed me links to designer boutiques in Miami. I thanked her and bought the one I wanted. That dress was the one thing I held on to for myself through this whole process. By 10 o'clock, I was at the Bayside Grand. The place looked like something out of a wedding magazine. Blush roses in tall glass vases, champagne-colored linens on every table, gold accent plates at every seat. An 8-piece string group was warming up near the garden terrace. The total cost between the venue, food, flowers, and everything else was somewhere around $80,000, mostly paid for by the Merritts. 180 guests were coming. Roughly half were from Cole's world, business partners, country club members, city council people, the Pembertons, the Clarks. The other half were mine. My Aunt Ruth from Gainesville, 3 co-workers from the clinic, my college friend Priya, my high school best friend Dex, who drove 4 hours in a truck with no AC and showed up in the one blazer he owns and still somehow looked happier than anyone there. If you have a friend like Dex in your life, type DEX in the comments right now. 'Cause everybody needs that person. I noticed pretty early that the seating felt off. The Merritt guests were in the front tables, closest to everything. My people were spread out toward the edges and the back. My maid of honor, Janelle, leaned over to me during the rehearsal walkthrough that morning and whispered, "Why is your Aunt Ruth at table 12? She's practically around the corner from the kitchen." I brushed it off. Their side has more guests. It's just numbers. Janelle raised both eyebrows but let it go. The ceremony ran at noon. I walked down the aisle. Cole was standing at the end of it. He looked perfect. He always looked so perfect. That was part of what I missed. I kept looking at the surface and not checking what was underneath. Right after the ceremony, while guests moved outside to the cocktail hour on the waterfront terrace, I slipped into the reception hall to do a final check on the setup. Old habit. When you work in urgent care, you verify everything every time. The room was gorgeous. 22 round tables, white linens, small gold place card holders at every seat. Table 1, the head table right in front of the stage and the dance floor, was set for 10. That's where both sets of parents were supposed to sit, along with Cole's grandmother and my Aunt Ruth. I had approved that setup 3 weeks ago. I walked up to table 1 and started reading the cards. Douglas Merritt, Victoria Merritt, Gerald Merritt, Patricia Merritt, Mr. and Mrs. Pemberton, Clarks. I kept going through every card. 8 Merritts and their close associates. Not one Wilson anywhere. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step in the dark. I started checking every other table. 2, 5, 9, 12. I found them at table 16. Dead last. Tucked into the far back corner right next to a swinging service door. The chairs at that table weren't the nice wooden chairs every other table had. They were padded folding chairs, the backup kind venues keep in storage. A rolling utility cart full of dirty equipment sat 2 feet to the left. The light above wasn't a chandelier. It was a bare fluorescent tube making that low buzz that gets under your skin. Earl Wilson. Beverly Wilson. Gold ink on cream cardstock. My parents' names. Next to a trash bin with a foot pedal. I found Lori, the event coordinator, near the bar. Who changed the seating chart? She didn't even flinch. Mrs. Merritt made some adjustments early this morning. She said you'd signed off on the new arrangement. I had never signed off on anything. I went straight to find Cole. I genuinely believed in that moment that he would be as upset as I was. That he'd look at me with shock and say, "What did she do?" That I'd see something real cross his face. I was wrong. That was the second time I was wrong that day. He was in the groomsman's suite, standing in front of a full-length mirror adjusting the cuffs of his jacket. Silver cufflinks, a gift from Victoria, he'd told me. His initials engraved on them. Cole. Who moved my parents off the head table? He didn't look away from the mirror. Mom rearranged some things this morning. It's not a huge deal. Not a huge deal? They have no seats at a real table. Table 16 is next to the loading area and a trash bin. He let out this long breath. Kind someone lets out when they've already decided you're overreacting before you've finished talking. Steph, we have 180 people out there. Can we not do this right now? When, then? After they've sat back there for 3 hours while the whole room watches? He turned from the mirror. His face was smooth. Patient. The kind of patient that isn't actually kindness, it's just control wearing a better outfit. The Pembertons are at table 1. Clark's. These are people my dad has built his business around for 20 years. It's just smart. Smarter than my parents. That's not what I said. You didn't have to say it out loud. He stepped closer. Put his hand on my arm. Gentle. Rehearsed. You're stressed, babe. It's our wedding day. Let me sort it out with Mom after dinner, okay? Tomorrow. Tomorrow. I had heard that word so many times over the past year and a half. Tomorrow after the engagement party. Tomorrow after the shower. Tomorrow when things calmed down. Tomorrow always came and nothing ever got sorted. I searched his face for one honest thing. Outrage. Guilt. Even surprise. Something that would tell me he'd had no idea until this very moment. There was nothing. No shock. No anger on my behalf. He had known since morning. He had gotten dressed, fastened his cufflinks, checked his hair, and done absolutely nothing about it. I walked out without saying another word. But there was one more door I needed to walk past before I made any decisions. I want to be clear, I was not eavesdropping. I was going back to try one final time. I was going to stand in front of Cole and say, "Fix this right now or I don't walk into that room." The door to the groomsman's suite was cracked open a few inches. Enough. Victoria's voice came through first. Quiet and controlled, the way she always sounded when she was most sure of herself. Cole. Look at her father. That jacket came off a department store rack. And her mother, did she make that dress herself? They look completely out of place. A pause. The Pembertons are at table 1. Clark's. These are the people who open doors for your father's business. Not, and I'm sorry, but not a truck driver and a teacher's aide. Silence. Then Cole's voice. You're right. The Wilsons are fine in the back. It makes more sense. Then Victoria lower. You should have listened to me from the beginning. She was never quite the right fit for this family. She was never quite the right fit for this family. I pressed my hand flat against the wall of that hallway. The floor felt like it tilted. My own heartbeat went slow and heavy in my ears, like a door being bolted shut from the inside. My father. 30 years behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler. 2 bad shoulders and a back that gave him grief every single morning. A man who rerouted his whole work schedule around my life for 31 years and never once asked for a thank you. A truck driver. Said like something small. Said like something to be ashamed of. And my mother. Beverly Wilson. 24 years in a classroom helping children who everyone else had given up on. Who spent her own money on school supplies. Who knew every child's story. Teacher's aide. Said like it didn't count. And the man I was about to marry said, "You're right. You cannot unhear something like that." I have tried to think of a way to explain it, and the best I can do is this. It was like a floor giving out underneath you. 1 second it's solid. The next, there's nothing there. I pushed the door open. Victoria turned first. Her face locked up for just a second, then rearranged itself into that polished smile. Stephanie, sweetheart, you look absolutely... I heard everything. Cole's jaw went tight. Heard what? We were just... She looks out of place. A truck driver and a teacher's aide. The Wilsons are fine in the back. I held his eyes. Which part did I get wrong? Victoria stepped forward, hands folded in front of her. Stephanie, this is purely about event logistics. The seating. You called my father's jacket embarrassing. You called my mother a teacher's aide like that's something she should hide. I didn't mean it the way it. And you. I looked straight at Cole. You said I was never the right fit for this family. Cole's voice dropped into that calm, smooth register he used in business settings. You're emotional right now. It's our wedding day. Let's just... I'm not emotional, Cole. I'm clear. I've never been clearer. Victoria shot a quick look at her son. That sharp look that said handle this. Cole tried one more time. Steph, come on. Let's not make something big out of. I didn't make this big. You did. I turned and walked out. His footsteps did not follow. That was the last answer I needed. Quick pause. If you're watching this and you're feeling something right now, drop a comment. I read every single one. And if this story deserves it, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Okay. Back to it. I found Janelle where I'd left her, leaning against the wall outside the bridal suite, arms crossed, watching the hallway like she was keeping guard. One look at my face and she was already moving toward me. Tell me everything. I told her. Word for word. Victoria's voice. Cole's agreement. The truck driver and the teacher's aide. Part about me never being the right fit. Janelle was quiet for about 4 seconds. Then she spoke. Okay. Here's what you need to know right now. She kept her voice low. The ceremony is done, but the marriage license hasn't been signed yet. Lori still has it. The plan was to sign it at the sweetheart table during dessert, remember? Victoria wanted to make it a whole public moment. I remembered. She had insisted on it. So right now, today, you are not legally married. The vows and the rings don't count for anything until that paper gets signed, witnessed, and filed with the county clerk. No signature means no marriage. No divorce needed. No legal mess. You walk away clean. I let that settle. How long do I have? As long as you don't pick up that pen. But Steph, once you sit down in there and the toasts start rolling and Lori brings out that license in front of 180 people, the pressure to sign is going to feel like a wall falling on you. She put her hand on my arm. I'm your best friend. Whatever you choose to do, I am standing right next to you. Janelle had warned me about the merits 8 months ago. Once gently over coffee. Then she let it go and respected my choice. That's exactly why I trusted her more than anyone else in that building. I didn't have a full plan yet, but I knew where I needed to go first. My dad was sitting up straight, hands resting flat on his thighs, the way he always sits when something is wrong but he refuses to show it. His sport coat was buttoned all the way up. His tie was straight. He had polished his shoes that morning. I could tell because they had that particular look of shoe polish applied by hand with a cloth, not a machine. My mom sat right next to him, smoothing a small crease in the skirt of her dress. She had made that dress herself. She had taken an older dress she already owned, let the waist out slightly, added lace trim to the collar and the sleeves, and put in a whole new zipper. I had watched her work on it across 4 weekends at the dining room table, pins between her lips, reading glasses sliding down her nose, that little line between her eyebrows she gets when she's really concentrating. For weekends of careful work. Now sitting next to a rolling trash bin. A server pushed through the service door right behind them, swung open hard and let out a blast of warm air and the crashing sound of sheet pans being stacked. My mom flinched. My dad did not move. Hey, sweetheart. He smiled when he saw me walking over. Big and genuine, the same smile I have known my whole life. You look like something I can't even put into words. Dad, I am so sorry about where they... Stop. He held up one hand. I can sit anywhere in this place. That is not what this day is about. He looked at me for a long moment. Something moved behind his eyes. Not anger. Not embarrassment. More like understanding, like he already knew something I hadn't said out loud yet. I thought about the money. My parents had put $14,000 toward this wedding. They had saved that over 12 years. A little each month, quietly, from a truck driver's paycheck and a teacher's aide salary, tucked away and set aside for this day. That money covered the entire open bar for the evening, every glass of wine, every cocktail, every round of drinks those 180 guests had been enjoying since they arrived. Without my parents' $14,000, there was no bar tonight. And Victoria had seated the people who paid for the bar next to the place where the dirty dishes came out. Stay right here, I said. Both of you. I'll be back. My mom caught my hand. Stephanie. Don't make trouble on our account, honey. I'm not making trouble, Mom. I squeezed her hand. I'm ending it. The reception doors opened and all 180 guests started filing in, guided by the string ensemble. I stood at the edge of the room and watched. The Merritt side took the front tables without hesitation. Like they'd always sat there. Like it was built for them. My people shuffled toward the back, checking place cards, finding their seats in the dim corners and side walls. The MC, a guy named Brett who was Cole's college buddy and clearly thought he was funnier than he was, stepped up to the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the families of our wonderful couple. He gestured toward table 1. The Merritt family stood up. Victoria beamed. Douglas gave a modest little nod. Pemberton's clinked glasses. Applause all around. Brett looked at his card. Paused. Moved on. Now let's raise a glass to love and to this beautiful night. My parents were not mentioned. Not a single word. From across the room I watched my coworker Dr. Sandro say, she had driven up from Fort Myers because I'd asked her specifically because she had been in my corner through every hard thing for 3 years, walked toward table 16 holding a glass of water. She stopped when she saw the setup. Looked at the folding chairs. Looked at the service door. Looked at my dad sitting there in his polished shoes. She set the glass down and walked straight to me. Stephanie. She kept her voice low and even, the same voice she uses when she's telling you something you need to hear. Why are your parents sitting next to a utility cart? I'm handling it, Sandra. Your dad drove 2 hours to help me move last spring and wouldn't let me pay him a cent for gas. Why is he at the back table next to a trash can? I'm handling it. She looked at my face. Read it. Nodded. Stayed close. First course came out. A butternut squash bisque with a little swirl of cream on top, $40 a head on the menu. My parents' $14,000 ladled into white porcelain bowls and placed in front of guests who didn't know where the money came from. Then Victoria left table 1, drifting toward the bar with her friend Claudette. Their path took them right past table 16. I was standing near the dessert station, maybe 20 feet away. My mother was trying to quietly fix a small piece of lace trim that had come loose at her wrist. She was working at it with her fingers, trying to tuck it back in without drawing any attention, hunched slightly so nobody would notice. Victoria stopped walking. Looked at my mom's wrist. Leaned toward Claudette. Bless her heart. Someone really should have just bought her something appropriate to wear. She took a sip of her champagne. But I suppose not everyone knows what they don't know. She said it just loud enough to carry. That's the thing about Victoria, she always knew exactly how loud to be. My mother's hands stopped moving. She looked down at the tablecloth. My dad reached under the table and found her hand. He held it. Didn't say a word. Just held on. I have worked in urgent care. I have stood in a room when a family gets the worst news of their lives. I have kept myself steady through things that would shake most people to their core. But watching my father, Earl Wilson, the man who drove through rain and storms and two-lane highways in the middle of the night for 30 years to keep our lights on, watching him sit there and quietly absorb that woman's nastiness while holding my mother's hand under a folding table next to a trash bin, that was the hardest thing I have ever watched. Because for the first time in my entire life, I saw something in my father's eyes that I had never seen before. Not anger. Not sadness. Shame. Kind that comes from being put in a place you don't deserve and not being able to fix it. I was done. Completely and permanently done. I crossed the reception hall, grabbed Cole by the arm at the edge of the dance floor, and pulled him behind a column near the sound equipment where nobody at the nearby tables could hear us. Your mother just insulted mine. Out loud. In front of guests. Right now. What did she say? Bless her heart, someone should have bought her something appropriate. She doesn't know what she doesn't know. Cole rubbed the back of his neck. Mom doesn't always think before she speaks. She doesn't mean. She meant every single word and you know it. She always does. Now you go over there. Quietly. Tell her to apologize. He looked at me. Then he looked across the room. At his mother laughing at the bar. Table 1 full of business contacts. The whole polished setup he was standing in the middle of. He looked at all of it like something he didn't want to disturb. Then he looked back at me. I'm not starting a scene in the middle of our wedding reception, Stephanie. Then whisper it. I don't care how you handle it. Just handle it. He straightened his jacket. Took one long breath. And then he said the sentence that closed the door between us for good. Your parents are tough people, Steph. They can get through one dinner. Let's just finish the night. He turned around. Walked back to table 1. Sat down. Victoria reached over and touched his arm. He picked up his wine glass. I stood behind that column by myself. The string ensemble moved into something soft and slow. Servers glided through the room with the main course. Herb-crusted salmon. My $14,000 salmon. 180 people laughed and clinked glasses in a room where my parents didn't have a seat worth sitting in. Cole chose. He chose that room. He chose that table. He chose her. Now it was my turn. I walked straight to the back of the room and sat down. Not at the sweetheart table with the spotlight on it. Not next to the groom in front of everyone. I pulled out a folding chair at table 16 and sat down between my parents. My mom looked at me like I had lost my mind. Stephanie. Honey. You need to be up front. My family's here. So I'm here. My dad studied my face. He has known me for 31 years. He can read what's happening with me before I say a single word. Steph. His voice was low. Careful. Don't do something that can't be undone. I'm not doing this for you, Dad. I looked at him straight. I'm doing this for me. I looked across the room to where Janelle was sitting. She was already watching me. I gave her one small nod. She nodded back. Reached under the table. Grabbed her bag. Stood up. I took one breath. Then I stood up too. 60 feet from table 16 to the stage. My heels hit the hardwood floor. Sharp. Steady. One after another. A few heads turned. Then more. Conversations around the room fell off table by table, like a wave moving backward through the space. By the time I stepped up onto the stage, the whole room was almost completely quiet. Brett, the MC, was mid-story about Cole's college days. He saw me walk up and stumbled. Everybody, the bride. A little scattered applause. I reached out and took the microphone from his hand. He let go without any argument. His face was somewhere between confused and nervous. I looked out at the room. White tablecloths. gold place cards, crystal glasses, 180 people staring back at me. Victoria at table 1 with her champagne. Cole beside her. Douglas with his eyes on the tablecloth. My parents behind me at table 16. From the far side of the room, Sandra crossed her arms and gave me the smallest nod. Go ahead. I'm right here. Thank you all for being here tonight. My voice came through the speakers clean and steady. No shaking. No tears. Years of delivering hard news to people in the middle of their worst days had prepared me for exactly this. I know you all came here to celebrate a wedding, and I owe it to you to be honest about what's going on in this room right now. Every last bit of noise died out. 180 people went completely still. I could hear someone's ice settling in their glass at table 6. Most of you know me as Cole's wife. Or you thought you did. But before I was that and after tonight, I am Earl and Beverly Wilson's daughter. Pointed to the back corner. My parents are sitting at table 16. I'd like everyone to take a look at table 16 for just a moment. Every single head in that room turned. 180 pairs of eyes found my parents. Folding chairs, service door, fluorescent light buzzing, utility cart parked 2 feet away. I watched what happened to people's faces. First confusion. Then they figured out what they were looking at. Then that slow tightening as it hit them. Jim Pemberton put his fork down. His wife pressed her hand to her mouth. Sandra closed her eyes for a moment. Table 1, Victoria's smile went rigid. Her grip on the champagne flute turned her knuckles white. Cole sat stone still beside her, jaw locked, eyes on me. This morning my parents were supposed to be at this table, table 1, right here in front. That was the seating arrangement I approved 3 weeks ago. I signed off on it myself. I let that sit in the air for a second. Sometime this morning, someone walked into this room and changed every place card at the head table. My parents were moved to the very last seats in the building, next to the service entrance, next to the loading area, next to the trash. I paused. Let the room sit with it. That person was Victoria Merritt. Every head at table 1 turned toward her. Victoria sat perfectly still. Chin up. Color completely gone from her face. Her grip on that champagne glass was shaking. Douglas still had not moved. He was staring at the tablecloth. When I went to my husband and told him what his mother had done, he told me not to make a scene. And when I asked him to go quietly tell his mother to say she was sorry, he said, and I am repeating his exact words, "Your parents are tough people. They can get through one dinner." Jim Pemberton pushed back from the table. Not dramatically. Just enough to put some space between himself and the Merritts. Cole got to his feet. "Stephanie, that's not the whole." "Sit down, Cole." I did not raise my voice. Didn't need to. You had more than one chance to stand up for my family today. You didn't take any of them. He stood there for 3 long seconds. Then Victoria touched his sleeve and he sat back down. The room was so quiet I could hear the fluorescent bulb above table 16 still buzzing. My Aunt Ruth, who had driven 3 hours from Gainesville to be here, put both her hands flat on her table and whispered, "Go on, baby. Tell them." Let me tell you about the 2 people who are sitting at table 16. I turned just enough to see my dad in the corner of my eye. He was sitting straight, hands folded, eyes on me. His face was still. But behind his eyes, pride. The deep, quiet kind. Kind that doesn't make noise. My father, Earl Wilson, drove 18-wheelers up and down the East Coast for 30 years. He worked through surgeries and bad shoulders and a back that hurt him every single morning. He rerouted his work schedule around my school plays and my graduations and every single thing that mattered to me. He never once asked me to feel sorry for him. A woman at table 7 pressed a napkin to her face. My mother, Beverly Wilson, spent 24 years as a teacher's aide at an elementary school in Pinewood Falls, Florida. She helped kids learn to read who everyone else had given up on. She bought classroom supplies out of her own pocket. She knew every child in that building by name, and she knew which ones were going home to something hard. Those kids always got a little extra. I looked directly at the front tables now. My parents put $14,000 toward this wedding. They saved that money over 12 years. That $14,000 paid for the open bar tonight. Every drink you've had since you walked in here, my parents paid for it. People looked at their glasses, then at their plates, then at the back corner of the room. And you put them next to the trash. I looked right at Victoria when I said it. The room broke open. Sharp breaths from multiple tables. Claudette, Victoria's friend, physically moved her chair sideways, creating visible distance between herself and the woman she'd been laughing with an hour ago. 3 people at nearby tables watched that happen and exchanged looks. From the back of the room, Dex stood up. He didn't say anything. He just stood up in his one blazer, eyes wet, chin up. Then Sandra. Then my Aunt Ruth. Like witnesses. Victoria opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "I came here today to start a marriage," I said. My voice did not crack. I was not going to let it crack in front of her. A real partnership, built on the idea that we would protect each other even when it cost something. Even when it was uncomfortable. Even when the easy thing would be to stay quiet. I took one breath. But I cannot sign my name to a marriage where my family is treated like an embarrassment. I will not spend my life with a man who sits still while his mother decides my father doesn't belong at the front table. I unpinned my veil. Folded it once. Twice. 3 times. Set it on the edge of the stage carefully, the way my mom always taught me to fold things with care even when you're letting something go. To everyone here from Pinewood Falls and everywhere else who came from my family, thank you. We're going home. I looked at Victoria one last time. To the Merritts, I genuinely hope you are well. But I deserve better than a man who needed to be asked twice to stand up for me. And my parents deserve better than table 16. I set the microphone down on the stand. Not a slam. Not a drop. Gentle. The way you put a tool down when the job is finished. I stepped off the stage. 60 feet back through that room. My heels on the hardwood. Every step loud in the silence. Every eye in the place on me. This time nobody talked over it. My dad stood up when I got to table 16. My mom was crying, not loud, just those quiet tears she tries to hold back, the kind that slip through before she can stop them. I hugged them both right there, between the folding chairs and the service door. Janelle was already there with my coat and bag. She had called a car while I was at the mic. Sandra was right beside her. Dex was right behind Sandra, still in that blazer, crying harder than anybody, which is very on-brand for Dex. The 4 of us walked out. Past the dessert table. Past the string ensemble, which had completely stopped playing. Past 180 quiet faces. Behind me I heard Victoria's voice go sharp. She has completely lost her mind. And Cole calling after me. Stephanie. Stephanie, wait. I didn't wait. The door swung shut behind us. The last sound from inside the building was the fluorescent light above table 16. Still buzzing. If you're still here, I need you to do 3 things right now. Like this video. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. And drop table 1 in the comments if you felt this story. Promise I read them. Every single one. We sat around the kitchen table at my parents' house. The same table I had done homework on since 4th grade, white top, chrome legs, a small chip in one corner from when I knocked a pan off the stove in high school. Mom made tea. Dad sat across from me and said nothing, which is his way of saying everything worth saying. 10 o'clock, Janelle called. The marriage license is still unsigned. Confirmed it with Lori. She has the original document. It was never signed, never witnessed, never filed with the county. Stephanie, legally you were never married. Not for 1 second. You walk away completely clean. One tight knot in my chest came loose. There's more, she said. Your lease is in your name. Your bank accounts are separate. There's no shared property to argue over. His family's lawyers have nothing to work with. You are in a solid position. She paused. He's called 19 times. Victoria called twice from a number you don't have blocked. Douglas called once and left a voicemail. What did Douglas say? Just 2 words. He said he's sorry. I blocked Cole and Victoria. I saved Douglas's voicemail without listening to it again that night. Then I sat in my parents' kitchen until almost midnight. For the first time in 2.5 years, I wasn't holding something together that was constantly trying to fall apart. 3 weeks later, I was sick every morning for 5 days before I understood what was happening. I bought a test at the pharmacy on Main Street. Mrs. Guidry, the pharmacist who has known me since I was a little girl, rang it up without a word and handed me the bag carefully with both hands like she already knew it was important. 2 lines. No question about it. I sat on the bathroom floor of my parents' house and let myself cry in a way I hadn't let myself cry at the wedding. Not because I regretted walking out. I never regretted walking out for a single second. But because carrying a baby alone is one of the hardest things a person can face, and I was finding that out sitting on tile my dad had laid years ago. The decision was never actually a decision. Of course I would tell Cole. That child deserved to know both parents. But telling him was not the same as going back. It was not the same as handing over my dignity for a co-parenting arrangement wrapped up in merit money and merit conditions. My mom found me about an hour later. She came in for towels, saw the test on the counter, sat right down on the floor next to me. Bad hip and everything. You have never been alone, she said. Not one day in your life. I know, Mom. Your father is going to try to act calm and then go cry in the garage. I actually laughed. For the first time in weeks. Everything ahead of me was harder now. But harder is not the same as wrong. I told Cole by letter, every word reviewed by Janelle before I sent it. 3 sentences. Professional. Final. I'm pregnant. I'm keeping the baby. Any contact about parental rights goes through my attorney. His responses came in waves. First message, Steph, come home. We can figure this out together. 4 hours later, my family has resources you don't have. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. That night, you're going to regret this. 3 different people in 3 messages, pleading, threatening, warning, all from the same man who couldn't stand up to his mother over a table assignment. Then Victoria called the house line. Got my dad. Mr. Wilson, I want you to understand that this child is a Merritt. We have legal representation that Mrs. Merritt. My dad's voice was flat and steady as a road in the middle of the night. My daughter has an attorney. Talk to her. Not to me. He hung up. Went back to his coffee. My attorney, a family law specialist named Iris Vance out of Tampa, was straightforward with me. Florida courts favor the primary caregiver with stable employment and family support. His family's money is not a legal argument. You file the paperwork, you follow the process, you keep your boundaries. I did exactly that. 5 months later, I had an apartment 4 blocks from my parents. 2 bedrooms. $850 a month. The hallway floor creaked. Kitchen oven was the size of a toaster. The bathroom exhaust fan sounded like a riding lawnmower. It was mine and I loved it. Mom showed up with fabric and her sewing machine within the first week. Yellow curtains in the kitchen. White cotton in the bedroom. A soft green print in the nursery. Dad came over one Saturday with his toolbox. Fixed the kitchen sink. Replaced the shower head. Reinforced the closet. Then spent the whole afternoon in the nursery building a small wooden shelf from reclaimed wood he had found at a demolition site. He carved a little groove along the top edge. No name carved into it yet. Just a notch where one would go when I was ready. Sandra rearranged the clinic schedule so I could reduce my hours in the third trimester without losing seniority. You covered my shifts when I had surgery last year, she said. This is nothing. There were nights I sat on the kitchen floor and cried. Not about leaving, I never cried about that. But being pregnant alone catches you sideways in ways nobody fully prepares you for. 2 a.m. cramps with no one to bring you water. The ultrasound tech asking, "Is Dad joining us today?" The baby shower my mom threw in her living room with one empty chair that everyone was careful not to look at. I chose this road. I would choose it again. But right doesn't always mean easy. It just means right. Lily Beverly Wilson came into the world on a Tuesday morning in June at 7:14. 7 pounds 1 ounce. Dark eyes. A pair of lungs that cleared the delivery room the moment she took her first breath. I gave her my last name. The Wilson name. The name of a truck driver and a teacher's aide who spent their whole lives making sure their daughter knew she was enough. My dad held her first after me after the nurses were done. His big rough hands around something so small and new. He stood by the window with the morning light coming in and he just breathed with her for a full minute without saying a single word. My mom took 58 photos. I counted them later. 3 weeks after Lily was born, a letter arrived at my apartment. Heavy paper. No return address. I recognized the handwriting from papers Cole had shown me over the years. Douglas Merritt. Tiffany. I owe you an apology. Not for what my wife and son did, but for what I didn't do. I was in that building. I knew about the seating change. I heard the conversation. I did nothing. That is on me, and I will carry it. I am not asking for forgiveness or for any access to your daughter. But if there ever comes a day when you'd consider it, I would be grateful. I read it twice. Folded it. Put it in the nightstand drawer next to Lily's hospital bracelet. I didn't write back. Not that week, not that month. Maybe he was genuine. Maybe it was strategy. I had learned the hard way that hope without evidence is not a plan. So I let time do the deciding. Lily is 14 months old. She has my nose and Cole's jawline and a laugh that sounds genuinely surprised every time something is funny, which is everything because she finds everything funny. She drops things off her high chair tray on purpose and then leans over to watch them fall like she's conducting a science experiment. I'm back full-time at the clinic. They promoted me to lead PA on the urgent care floor last month. Came with a parking spot that has my name on a little sign. I have never been prouder of a parking sign in my life. Custody arrangement went through family court in January. Cole gets 2 weekends per month. He shows up on time. Every time. I'll give him that. Toria is not part of the arrangement. Not because I banned her outright, but because I set one clear condition. Any time with extended family requires my presence or my parents' supervision until Lily is old enough to tell me herself how she feels about people. Toria called that condition insulting. I called it a boundary. She has not met Lily yet. Not because the door is locked. Because she refuses to walk through it on anyone's terms but her own. Cole and I talk through a co-parenting app. Pickup times. Doctor visits. Milestones. No small talk. No old arguments. He is quieter on handoff days. He holds Lily a little longer before he gives her back. Once I saw him press his face into the top of her head and close his eyes, and something in my chest moved, not for him, but for the version of him that might have existed if he had been brave enough to choose differently on a September afternoon. Sunday night. 6 o'clock. The Wilson table. Same kitchen I grew up in. Same white-top table with the chip in the corner. 6 chairs, none of them matching. Dad's is a wooden chair he sanded and refinished from a yard sale. Mom's has a cushion she crocheted herself. Mine is the nice folding chair from the garage, the one with the actual padding. No place cards. No gold charger plates. No string ensemble. Mom made her black-eyed peas, her corn casserole, her fried chicken, all the recipes that were too good for the wedding menu apparently. Biscuits from scratch. Sweet tea in a big plastic pitcher with a crack in the handle that nobody has ever bothered to replace. Janelle is here. Sandra drove up from Fort Myers with a key lime pie. Dex is here because Dex is always here on Sundays now. He just started showing up about a month after the wedding and nobody told him to stop because nobody wanted him to. He brings the extra sweet tea and wears the same blazer every single week as a running joke. Nobody is tired of it yet. Lily is in my dad's lap, trying to pull his reading glasses right off his face. He lets her. He always lets her. You know what, Lilybug, he says real quiet, like he's sharing a secret just between them. Your grandpa used to drive trucks all up and down Florida. Now I just drive you to the park and back. Best route I ever had. She grabs his nose instead of his glasses. Everybody at the table loses it. I look around. The overhead light flickers a little. Dad says he'll fix it next weekend. The wallpaper in the hallway is peeling at the corner seam. The Florida humidity gets into everything eventually. There's a gap at the bottom of the back door that lets in the summer heat, and Mom has a beach towel stuffed against it from June through September. There's no champagne, no crystal, no live music. But every single person at this table showed up because they wanted to be here. Every single one of them belongs. And nobody is sitting next to the trash. This is my table one. I'm not telling you this story to tell you what to do with yours. Everybody's life is different. Everybody's breaking point is different. But if you're in a table 16 situation right now, if there's a space in your life where you are always in the back, always near the exit, always made to feel like you should be grateful for the chair instead of asking why it's next to the garbage, I want you to hear this. You can stand up. You do not need a microphone. You do not need a lawyer waiting down the hall or a father who can fill a doorway. You do not need 180 witnesses watching. You just need to know, past the doubt, past the guilt, past that voice in your head saying don't cause trouble, don't make a scene, don't be difficult, that the people you love deserve better. And that you deserve a partner who already knows that. Without being asked twice. Without being given a deadline. The person you chose stays quiet when someone talks down about your family. They didn't really choose you. They chose the easy version of you. The version that didn't require them to have any courage. That is not love. That is a seating chart. My name is Stephanie Wilson. I'm 31 years old. I'm a physician assistant, a mom, a lead PA on the urgent care floor, and Earl and Beverly Wilson's daughter. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment 4 blocks from my parents, with creaky hallway floors and a parking spot with my name on it, and a wooden shelf my dad built in the nursery from barnwood he found for free. My daughter laughs like everything surprises her. She drops her spoon on the floor on purpose. She has never once sat at a table where she did not belong. I have never been more proud of where I come from. That's my story. Now here's what I need from you before you go. First, if this story hit you somewhere real, share it. Right now. Text it to someone. Put it on your page. Send it to that friend who needs to hear it. Stories like this only reach people when real people pass them along. Second, subscribe. I share stories like this every single week and I never hold back. Hit that button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Third, leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from, your city and your local time. I read every comment. Every one. And I have one specific question for you tonight. Would you have written back to Douglas? The father-in-law who apologized but did nothing? I'm still working through that one myself. Tell me what you think. If you've ever had to stand up for your family, type table 1 in the comments. I want to see how many of us there are. Thank you for staying until the very end. It means more than you know.